I wanted to start with the yield curve here. This is called the yield curve. As a way of motivating the topic for today, which is the swaps market, interest rate swaps. Okay. In a way, interest rate swaps are a kind of private sector yield curve. Okay. They're a kind of corporate bond term structure yield curve. And usually we think of the swap curve as being a spread over the Treasury curve. Okay. And this is the spread. And people think of that as being, well, corporations are less creditworthy than the government maybe, or there's less liquidity, or people have different reasons why they think there's a swap spread there. What has happened in the world since the financial crisis is that swap spread has gone a little crazy, okay, and is in fact often negative at the long end. And that's what I'm showing up there. You see that this is data that I pulled off. This is data for today. Okay, this is showing you, the blue line is showing you the Treasury yield curve, and I'm connecting them with straight lines. I'm just 1 year, 5 year, 10 year, 30 years. So you could smooth it out in your mind, but I only have 4 data points there. And the important thing to appreciate is down there at 1 year, you can see that the swap rate. As I say, I'm going to explain what a swap rate is, okay, but for the moment, this is like a corporate 1 year interest rate, okay, is higher than the Treasury rate. There's a little spread there. By 10 years, they're basically on top of each other. By 30 years, there's actually a spread that goes the opposite direction, okay. The corporate swap spread is negative over Treasuries. And that means there's an arbitrage where you would short corporate bonds and long treasuries. And why isn't somebody doing that? You know, so this is what we're going to come to at the end. Okay, this has been true. This negative swap spread. This has been true basically throughout the crisis and ever since the crisis. So there's something seriously skewed in the structure of the capital market. That this is a symptom. This is a symptom of. But to understand that, we got to understand a little bit more about what we mean by a swap in the first place. What do we mean by a swap? I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to write it here. There is, as often in money markets and Wall Street, there's lingo here, okay, that we just have to get used to because it's the way the traders have a monopoly and other people don't understand what they're saying, okay. So we got to get used to this and translate it into our balance sheet so that we're always sure exactly what they're saying. So I'm going to use Stigham's example. She has an example of she talks about a AA firm and a BBB firm. And we'll just call them AA and BBB. And she is imagining that AA finds itself able to borrow relatively cheaply at a fixed rate, at a long-term interest rate. And BBB, by contrast, is able to borrow most cheaply as a flexible rate, short-term flexible rate borrowing. Okay, so think of this as basically a bond. Okay, AA is issuing a 10-year bond, and BBB is issuing 3-month LIBOR or something like that. So that's the difference. Okay. So BBB is worried that 3 months from now it's going to have to roll this over, and it doesn't like that, and because it doesn't know what its funding rate's going to be. It would like long-term lending, as a matter of fact. It would like to borrow long-term in order to lock that in. And perhaps AA is happy having shorter-term borrowing, and so they can do a swap, an interest rate swap, where they swap exposures. Now, this is actually easy to understand now because we always understand a swap as a swap of IOUs. And so you just have to say, well, what are the IOUs that they're swapping notionally, sort of behind the scenes? What are these IOUs? Okay. Well, if you want to swap into flexible rate here, what you need is a parallel loan structure, okay, where you have a fixed rate lending here, okay, that is the same rate as that, let's say, and you have LIBOR on this side. Okay. And if you're triple B, you want the opposite. You want to get out of your LIBOR exposure and get into some fixed rate exposure. Okay. And that is that thing, that where you're promising here, you're promising to pay a short-term interest rate and to receive a fixed rate for the life of the swap. That's a swap. You're promising to pay here, so this is just the other side of that. You're promising to pay a fixed rate and receive a flexible rate. That's a swap, interest rate swaps. These swaps are quoted every day in the paper, and it's in the second section, and so that's where I got those numbers. I'll just show you here. So it's down at the bottom, the second page, interest rates swaps, and they show them for various currencies: euros, pounds, Swiss francs, dollars, yen, and for 1 year, 2 year, all the way out to 30 year, and they quote a bid-ask. So for example, for 10-year, they quote 1.66 and 1.69 bid-ask. 1.66, 1.69. So you can see that that's right, 10-year, that's right about 1.66 there, 1.69, that swap rate. Okay, that's this rate here. Okay. Okay. What they're quoting is a swap in which there's, and they make it clear in the footnotes, where it's 6-month LIBOR on one side, okay, and maybe a 10-year bond rate, 1.66 on the other side. That's an interest rate swap. Okay. Now, the lingo, I warned you about this. Parallel loans, we understand, I hope, by now, that whenever you hear the word swap, there's a parallel loan in somebody's mind, and just once you understand what that parallel loan is, you understand how the swap works. In real life, there's not an actual parallel loan, okay? They're netting these payments, right? So it's not that this is a liability, I'm paying you short of this rate and you're paying me that. No, they're paying the net, okay? And there's no actual loan, there's no principal there, so it doesn't show up on your balance sheet. It doesn't indicate increased leverage or anything like that. So it's just a swap, like an off-balance sheet kind of item. But nonetheless, it has the same structure as this. The person, double A, is referred to as the seller of the swap. Okay? Sometimes said to be short the swap. Okay? They are, something that would be more, I guess, more clear, okay, if you would be to say they're the payer of a floating rate here, okay, that LIBOR, they're paying LIBOR and receiving a fixed rate. So triple B is the buyer of the swap, said to be long a swap, okay, and they're paying fixed rate. So if we were to put this swap on a balance sheet, the fact that street lingo says this is shorter swap tells me we should put it here, okay, and put it here. Okay, just to follow that lingo. There is no convention like this, okay, in actual balance sheets, okay, but since this is the lingo, it seems this is the convention that people have in the backs of their minds. So that's what I'm going to do in what follows. Okay. So far, so good. Now let me draw a few links to things we already know. so that it will seem less strange to you. If you think about this parallel loan structure, okay, you can see that an interest rate swap, a short swap position, is like owning a bond and financing it in the repo market. Right? Financing it in the repo market, short-term financing of a long-term bond. So you own a bond and you see there? It's fixed rate there, flexible rate there. So it's like a repo, a long-term repo. Okay, a repo in which you have a corporate bond here, and you're using it as collateral for a loan that's maybe 6 months instead of overnight or something. But still, there's a kind of repo structure quality to it. We call it a swap, okay, but it actually is quite similar to things that we know already. That's one analogy.